Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to jump into a fascinating real estate case study. It's a deal where a multi-million-dollar opportunity was almost completely torpedoed by one single impossible request. We're going to break down exactly how some really sharp analysis and a gutsy plan B turned what could have been a total disaster into a massive $9.5 million win.
Everything, and I mean everything, boiled down to this one number, $1 million. That wasn't the total value of the deal. No, that was the amount of cash and tax savings that the property owner could either gain or lose every single year. You can imagine, with stakes that high, they were ready to make some seriously bold moves to lock it in.
All right, so here's our roadmap. First up, we'll dig into that $1 million opportunity itself. Then, we'll hit the last-minute hurdle the lender threw up that nearly stopped the whole thing cold. We'll break down the genius two-track strategy they came up with, look at the nitty-gritty compliance work, and then wrap it all up with the final playbook that secured the victory.
Okay, let's set the stage. Our story kicks off at the Three Rivers apartment complex down in South Carolina. Now, because of a very specific state law, the owners here had a massive financial opportunity staring them right in the face, a chance to pretty much wipe their entire property tax bill clean off the books. So, the primary goal was simple: get a full property tax exemption. And the key to unlocking this was a South Carolina law designed to help nonprofits doing affordable housing. But here was the tricky part for the owner, DSP. How do you get that nonprofit tax break without, actually having to give your multi-million-dollar property away to a nonprofit? The entire deal, the whole shebang, hinged on a pretty cool legal concept called instrumentality. Basically, the idea was to restructure the property's ownership just enough so that in the eyes of the state's tax law, it was seen as an extension, an instrument of their nonprofit partner, a group called Housing on Merit, or HOM.
And, the way they set this up was actually incredibly slick. First, they had HOM take a tiny, almost symbolic 0.1% ownership stake. That's it. Legally, that sliver of ownership was just enough to classify the property as an instrumentality of the nonprofit, and boom, the tax exemption was unlocked. But, and this is crucial, a totally separate agreement made sure the original owner, DSP, kept 100% of the day-to-day operational control. Brilliant.
So it all sounds pretty elegant, right? A simple solution, massive savings. What could possibly go wrong? Well, just as everything was falling into place, a huge roadblock appeared. And it wasn't the state, it wasn't the nonprofit partner, it was their own lender.
Yep, the lender was Fannie Mae. And they basically slammed on the brakes. They got worried about the possibility that, maybe years from now the tax law could change. So they demanded a guarantee that was, fundamentally and literally impossible to give.
And this quote, which comes right from the strategy meeting, just captures how ridiculous the whole situation was. Think about it. Fannie Mae wanted a formal, written legal opinion promising that the South Carolina legislature could never change its own laws. As the team said, what law firm on planet Earth would ever sign a piece of paper like that? You can't guarantee what a bunch of politicians are going to do in the future.
So with Fannie Mae just dragging their feet, this created a massive time crunch. See, to get the tax savings for the 2026 tax year, this new ownership structure had to be legally in place by midnight, December 31st, 2025. That was a hard, non-negotiable, drop-dead deadline set by the state.
And the cost of failure? It was crystal clear. If they missed that December 31st deadline by even 1 minute, that entire $1 million tax savings for 2026 would just vanish, gone. And with Fannie Mae stalling, the clock was ticking, and it was ticking loudly. So what do? You've got an immovable object in your lender and an unstoppable force in the calendar. Well, you don't just sit there and hope for the best. You get proactive, you get creative. And they developed this brilliant dual-track strategy to take back control of their own destiny.
Okay, so plan A was the nice way. Try to convince Fannie Mae to just approve the change. It was way cheaper, saving about $700,000 in costs. The problem? Their fate was completely in the hands of the very people who are stalling. Not good. So they created Plan B. This was the power move. Basically, get a short-term bridge loan, use it to pay off Fannie Mae completely, get them out of the picture, do the deal, and then refinance with a new, smarter lender. This guaranteed they'd hit their deadline, but, and it's a big but, it came with a painful $3 million prepayment penalty.
So, the big question is, was that $3 million pill worth swallowing? Well, the financial analysis made the answer a resounding yes. Check it out. After you pay all the fees and costs, the net benefit each year was almost $950,000. So when you run the numbers, that huge $3 million penalty pays for itself in just over 3 years. And after that, it's pure profit year after year, adding up to nearly $9.5 million over the next decade. It was a classic spend money to make money scenario.
Now, dealing with the lender was a huge headache, but it was really only half the battle. Turns out there was a second internal problem they had to solve. The property itself wasn't actually compliant with the affordable housing rules needed to even get the tax break in the first place.
So here's the rule. To qualify, at least 75% of the apartments had to be rented to folks earning at or below a certain income level. And Three Rivers, well, they were close. They were sitting at 66% qualified, which meant they had a shortfall of just 10 units. They needed to close that gap to get their money.
And check this out. This isn't some stock image. This is the actual compliance dashboard the team was looking at in their meeting. You can see the real numbers right there. They had 71 units that qualified. Their target was 81 to hit that 75% mark, leaving them exactly 10 units short. This is what I love about great analysis. It takes a big, fuzzy problem and boils it down to a single, clear, manageable number: 10.
So how do you find 10 qualified units? Well, the law gave them 2 different ways to do it. Scenario 1 would have forced them to cut the rent on 27 different apartments, which would have cost them almost $100,000 a year in revenue. Ouch. But Scenario 2, which allowed for slightly different income levels, was way less painful. It only required 7 rent cuts and a revenue hit of just $25,000. Once they modeled it out, the choice was just obvious.
I mean, look at the difference when you visualize it. It's not even a contest, right? 27 painful rent cuts versus just 7. This is a perfect example of why you model everything. The smartest path isn't always the first one you think of. Scenario 2 was the clear, undeniable winner.
Now, you might be wondering, okay, but how do they find even 7 qualified tenants overnight? Well, here's the cool part. They didn't have to. The whole plan worked because of a standard industry practice called the next available unit rule. This basically let them get approved based on a solid plan to simply reserve the next apartments that became vacant for qualified tenants. They could use natural, normal turnover to hit their goal over time. So smart.
Okay, so the financing strategy is locked in. The compliance path is crystal clear. Let's wrap this up by looking at the final playbook and, more importantly, the critical lessons that we can all pull from a deal like this. The resolution came down to a super decisive 3-step action plan. Step 1, get the legal partnership with home signed, sealed, and delivered immediately. Step 2, go hard after Plan A with Fannie Mae, but at the exact same time, have everything for the Plan B bridge loan ready to go at a moment's notice. Guarantee you hit that deadline no matter what. And Step 3, officially implement that less painful Scenario 2 compliance plan to protect revenue.
So what's the big takeaway here for all of us? First, when you're up against a deadline you can't control, you have to create a parallel path that puts you back in the driver's seat. Second, don't ever be scared of a big upfront cost if you've done the math and the break-even analysis proves it's worth it. Third, always model out your options. The numbers will show you the most efficient path. And maybe most importantly, never ever let a single impossible request from someone else kill a multi-million-dollar opportunity.
And so I'll just leave you with this final question, because it gets right to the heart of strategic finance. What's actually the bigger risk here? Is it taking a calculated, recoverable $3 million hit, or is it losing out on a $9.5 million opportunity completely? Their detailed analysis gave them the confidence to choose the cost, secure the bigger prize, and deliver a massive win. And that's what great strategy is all about.